Welcome back to Dragon's Den Classics, where we're delving into the high-stakes world of Agatha Christie's The Seven Dials Mystery. I'm Russ, and with me is Ana, and we're here to give you a quick 2-minute recap of the thrilling events in chapters 13 and 14 as we gear up for the next installment.
That's right. Our amateur sleuth, Lady Eileen Bundle Brent, is fed up with waiting for the police. She's taking matters into her own hands to get to the bottom of this mysterious conspiracy.
Chapter 13 finds Bundle showing up unannounced at the Seven Dials Club, a hush-hush gambling establishment on Hunstanton Street. She's hunting for the club's footman, Alfred, who was suspiciously replaced at the Chimneys after Jimmy Thesiger's murder.
And she finds him. Bundle, using her aristocratic charm and good dose of intimidation, manages to get Alfred to take her inside the empty club. She hits him with the hard truth, accusing him of breaking the law and demanding to know how much he was paid to leave her father's house.
Alfred, scared out of his wits, admits that the club's Russian owner, a Mr. Moskrovsky, paid him £100 to take the job. Bundle forces the timid footman to give her a tour, and she finds a couple of things that pique her interest: a locked getaway door leading to the next street, and a soundproof room next to the gaming room.
That room, with its long table, 7 chairs, and a second, much more complexly locked cupboard, immediately screams secret meeting place to Bundle. She knows she has to hide, so she dismantles the flimsy shelves in the unlocked cupboard.
It's a tight fit, but after boring a small peephole, she has Alfred lock her in. What an adventurous spirit.
Chapter 14 is the big payoff. After 4 cramped hours, Bundle's patience is rewarded. The door unlocks and Mr. Moskrovsky enters, followed by a series of muffled taps on the secret exit door. 7 taps.
Moskrovsky is revealed to be 6 o'clock. He's wearing a mask shaped like a clock face. He's joined by 4 o'clock, a man with an American accent, and 5 o'clock, an elegant young man with a foreign, possibly Austrian accent.
The meeting of the Seven Dials organization is underway. They discuss a missing number 2 and the need to silence people who know too much about the group and the location.
Then, Bundle realizes she's finally hit pay dirt when they mention the plans of Wyvern Abbey and a German inventor named Herr Eberhard. They're plotting to steal Eberhard's invaluable invention at a house party at Wyvern.
The group mentions a letter found by Bundle herself and casually plan to cover up the murder of Ronald Devereaux with a staged accident.
Finally, they raise a toast to the beautiful woman who had entered the room, 1 o'clock, who will be key to carrying out their plans. As the group files out, Bundle, stiff but triumphant, has unearthed a dangerous conspiracy involving high treason and murder.
If you are enjoying our content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you will know when we drop a new episode. Now, join us for chapters 15 and 16 of Agatha Christie's The Seven Dials Mystery, where we'll find out what Bundle does with this explosive information and whether she can stop the Seven Dials plot before it's too late. Chapter 15, The Inquest.
Bundle reached home about 6 a.m. She was up and dressed by 9:30 and rang up Jimmy Thesiger on the telephone. The promptitude of his reply somewhat surprised her, till he explained that he was going down to attend the inquest.
So am I, said Bundle, and I've got a lot to tell you.
Well, suppose you let me drive you down. We can talk on the way. How about that?
All right, but allow me a bit extra because you'll have to take me to Chimneys. The chief constable's picking me up there.
Why?
Because he's a kind man, said Bundle.
So am I, said Jimmy. Very kind.
Oh, you're an ass, said Bundle. I heard somebody say so last night.
Who?
To be strictly accurate, a Russian Jew. No, it wasn't. It was.
But an indignant protest drowned her words. I may be an ass, said Jimmy. I dare say I am, but I won't have Russian Jews saying so. What were you doing last night, Bundle?
That's what I'm going to talk about, said Bundle. Goodbye for the moment.
She rang off in a tantalizing manner which left Jimmy pleasantly puzzled. He had the highest respect for Bundle's capabilities, though there was not the slightest trace of sentiment in his feelings towards her. She's been up to something, he opined as he took a hasty drink of coffee. Depend upon it, she's been up to something. 20 minutes later, his little two-seater drew up before Brook Street house, and Bundle, who had been waiting, came tripping down the steps. Jimmy was not ordinarily an observant young man, but he noticed that there were some black rings around Bundle's eyes and that she had, by all appearances, been having a late night the night before. Now then, he said as the car began to nose her way through the suburbs, what dark deeds have you been up to?
I'll tell you, said Bundle, but don't interrupt until I've finished.
It was somewhat of a long story, and Jimmy had all he could do to keep sufficient attention on the car to prevent an accident. But Bundle had finished, he sighed, then looked at her searchingly. Bundle?
Yes?
Look here, you're not pulling my leg.
What do you mean?
I'm sorry, apologized Jimmy, but it seems to me as though I've heard it all before. In a dream, you know.
I know, said Bundle sympathetically.
It's impossible, said Jimmy, following out his own train of thought. The beautiful foreign adventuress, the international gang, the mysterious number seven, whose identity nobody knows. I've read it all 100 times in books.
Of course you have. So have I. But it's no reason why it shouldn't really happen.
I suppose not, admitted Jimmy.
After all, I suppose fiction is founded on the truth. I mean, unless things did happen, people couldn't think of them.
There's something in what you say, agreed Jimmy. But all the same, I can't help pinching myself to see if I'm awake.
That's how I felt.
Jimmy gave a deep sigh. Well, I suppose we are awake. Let me see. A Russian, an American, an Englishman, a possible Austrian or Hungarian, and the lady who may be any nationality, for choice Russian or Polish. That's a pretty representative gathering.
And a German, said Bundle. You've forgotten the German.
Oh, said Jimmy slowly. You think?
The absent number two is Bauer, our footman. That seems to me quite clear from what they said about expecting a report which hadn't come in, though what there can be to report about Chimneys I can't think.
It must be something to do with Jerry Wade's death, said Jimmy. There's something there we haven't fathomed yet. You say they actually mentioned Bauer by name?
Bundle nodded. They blamed him for not having found that letter.
Well, I don't see what you could have been clearer than that. There's no going against it. You'll have to forgive my first incredulity, Bundle, but you know, it was rather a tall story. You say they knew about my going down to Wyvern Abbey next week?
Yes, that's when the American, it was him, not the Russian, said they needn't worry. You were only the usual kind of ass.
Ah, said Jimmy. He pressed his foot down on the accelerator viciously, and the car shot forward. I'm very glad you told me that. It gives me what you might call a personal interest in the case. He was silent for a minute or two, and then he said, Did you say the German inventor's name was Eberhard?
Yes, why?
Wait a minute. Something's coming back to me. Eberhard, Eberhard. Yes, I'm sure that was the name.
Tell me.
Eberhard was a Johnny who'd got some patent process he applied to steel. I can't put the thing properly because I haven't got the scientific knowledge, but I know the result was that it became so toughened that a wire was as strong as a steel bar that previously been. Eberhard had to go with airplanes, and his idea was that the weight would be so enormously reduced that the flying would be practically revolutionized. The cost of it, I mean. I believe he offered his invention to the German government, and they turned it down, pointed out some undeniable flaw in it, but they did it rather nastily. He set to work and circumvented the difficulty, whatever it was, but he'd been offended by their attitude and swore they shouldn't have his ewe lamb. I always thought the whole thing was probably bunkum, but now it looks differently.
That's it, said Bundle eagerly. You must be right, Jimmy. Eberhard must have offered his invention to our government. They've been taking, or are going to take, Sir Oswald Coote's expert opinion on it. There's going to be an unofficial conference at the Abbey. Sir Oswald, George, the Air Minister, and Eberhard. Eberhard will have the plans, or the process, or whatever you call it.
Formula, suggested Jimmy. I think formula is a good word myself.
He'll have the formula with him, and the 7 dials are out to steal the formula. I remember the Russian saying it was worth millions.
I suppose it would be, said Jimmy.
And well worth a few lives. That's what the other man said.
Well, it seems to have been, said Jimmy, his face clouding over. Look at this damn inquest today. Bundle, are you sure Ronnie said nothing else?
No, said Bundle, just that. 7 dials. Tell Jimmy Thesiger. That's all he could get out, poor lad.
I wish we knew what he knew, said Jimmy. But we found out one thing. I take it that the footman, Bauer, must almost certainly have been responsible for Jerry's death. You know, Bundle?
Yes?
Well, I'm a bit worried sometimes. Who's going to be the next one? It really isn't the sort of business for a girl to be mixed up in.
Bundle smiled in spite of herself. It occurred to her that it had taken Jimmy a long time to put her in the same category as Lorraine Wade. It's far more likely to be you than me, she remarked cheerfully.
Here, here, said Jimmy. But what about a few casualties on the other side for a change? I'm feeling rather bloodthirsty this morning. Tell me, Bundle, would you recognize any of these people if you saw them?
Bundle hesitated. I think I should recognize number 5, she said at last. He's got a queer way of speaking, a kind of venomous, lisping way, that I think I'd know again.
What about the Englishman?
Bundle shook her head. I saw him least, only a glimpse, and he's got a very ordinary voice. Except that he's a big man, there's nothing much to go by.
There's the woman, of course, continued Jimmy. She ought to be easier, but then you're not likely to run across her. She's probably putting in dirty work, being taken out to dinner by amorous cabinet ministers and getting state secrets out of them when they've had a couple. At least that's how it's done in the books. As a matter of fact, the only cabinet minister I know drinks hot water with a dash of lemon in it.
Take George Lomax, for instance. Can you imagine him being amorous with beautiful foreign women? Said Bundle with a laugh.
Jimmy agreed with her criticism. And now, about the man of mystery, number 7, went on Jimmy. You've no idea who he could be?
None whatever.
Again, by book standard, that is, he ought to be someone we all know. What about George Lomax himself?
Bundle reluctantly shook her head. In a book, it would be perfect, she agreed. But knowing Cotters, and she gave herself up to a sudden uncontrollable mirth. Cotters, the great criminal organizer, she gasped. Wouldn't it be marvelous?
Jimmy agreed that it would. Their discussion had taken some time, and his driving had slowed down involuntarily once or twice. They arrived at Chimneys to find Colonel Melrose already there waiting. Jimmy was introduced to him, and they all three proceeded to the inquest together. As Colonel Melrose had predicted, the whole affair was very simple. Bundle gave her evidence, the doctor gave his, evidence was given of rifle practice in the neighborhood, a verdict of death by misadventure was brought in. After the proceedings were over, Colonel Melrose volunteered to drive Bundle back to the Chimneys, and Jimmy Thesiger returned to London. For all his light-hearted manner, Bundle's story had impressed him profoundly. He set his lips closely together. "Ronnie, old boy," he murmured, "I'm going to be up against it, and you're not here to join in the game." Another thought flashed into his mind. Lorraine. Was she in danger? After a minute or two hesitation, he went over to the telephone and rang her up. "It's me, Jimmy. I thought you'd like to know the result of the inquest. Death by misadventure."
Oh, but...
"Yes, but I think there's something behind that. The coroner had a hint. Someone is at work hushing it up. I say, Lorraine.
Yes?
Look here. There's some funny business going about. You'll be very careful, won't you? For my sake?"
He heard the quick note of alarm that sprang into her voice. Jimmy, but then it's dangerous for you.
He laughed. "Oh, that's all right. I'm the cat that had 9 lives. Bye-bye, old thing." He rang off and remained a minute or two lost in thought. Then he summoned Stevens. "Do you think you could go out and buy me a pistol, Stevens?" "A pistol, sir?" True to his training, Stevens betrayed no hint of surprise. "What kind of pistol would you be requiring?" "The kind where you put your finger on the trigger and the thing goes on shooting until you take it off again." "An automatic, sir." "That's it," said Jimmy, "an automatic, and I should like it to be a blue-nosed one. If you and the shopman know what that is. In American stories, the hero always takes his blue-nosed automatic from his hip pocket." Stevens permitted himself a faint, discreet smile. "Most American gentlemen that I know, sir, carry something very different in their hip pockets," he observed. Jimmy Thesiger laughed.
The house party at the Abbey.
Bundle drove over to Wyvern Abbey just in time for tea on Friday afternoon. George Lomax came forward to welcome her with considerable empressement. "My dear Eileen," he said, "I can't tell you how pleased I am to see you here. You must forgive my not having invited you when I asked your father, but to tell the truth, I never dreamed that a party of this kind would appeal to you. I was both surprised and delighted when Lady Caterham told me of your interest in politics."
I wanted to come so much, said Bundle in a simple, ingenious manner.
"Mrs. Mikada will not arrive till the later train," explained George. "She was speaking at a meeting in Manchester last night. Do you know Thesiger? Quite a young fellow, but a remarkable grasp of foreign politics. One would hardly suspect it from his appearance."
I know Mr. Thesiger, said Bundle, and she shook hands solemnly with Jimmy, whom she observed had parted his hair in the endeavor to add earnestness to his expression.
"Look here," said Jimmy in a low, hurried voice, as George temporarily withdrew. "You mustn't be angry, but I told Bill about our little stunt."
Bill, said Bundle, annoyed.
"Well, after all," said Jimmy, "Bill is one of the lads, you know. Ronnie was a great pal of his, and so was Jerry."
Oh, I know, said Bundle.
"But you think it's a pity? Sorry."
Bill's all right, of course. It isn't that, said Bundle. But well, Bill's a born blunderer.
"Not mentally very agile," suggested Jimmy. "But you forget one thing. Bill's got a very hefty fist, and I've an idea that a hefty fist is going to come in handy."
Well, perhaps you're right. How did he take it?
"Well, he clutched his head a good bit, but the facts took some driving home. But by repeating the thing patiently in words of one syllable, I at last got it through his thick head, and naturally he's with us to the death, as you might say." George reappeared suddenly. "I must make some introductions, Eileen. This is Sir Stanley Digby, Lady Eileen Brent, Mr. O'Rourke." The Air Minister was a little round man with a cheerful smile. Mr. O'Rourke, a tall young man with laughing blue eyes and a typical Irish face, greeted Bundle with enthusiasm. "And here I was thinking it was going to be a dull political party entirely," he murmured in an adroit whisper.
"Hush," said Bundle. "I'm political, very political."
"Sir Oswald and Lady Coote, you know," continued George.
"We've never actually met," said Bundle, smiling.
She was mentally applauding her father's descriptive powers. Sir Oswald took her hand in an iron grip, and she winced slightly.
Lady Coote, after a somewhat mournful greeting, had turned to Jimmy Thesiger and appeared to be registering something closely akin to pleasure. Despite his reprehensible habit of being late for breakfast, Lady Coote had a fondness for this amiable, pink-faced young man. His air of irrepressible good nature fascinated her. She had a motherly wish to cure him of his bad habits and form him into one of the world's workers. Whether, once formed, he would be as attractive was a question she had never asked herself. She began now to tell him of a very painful motor accident which had happened to one of her friends.
"Mr. Bateman," said George briefly, as one who would pass on to better things. A serious, pale-faced young man bowed. "And now," continued George, "I must introduce you both to Countess Radsky." Countess Radsky had been conversing with Mr. Bateman. Leaning very far back on a sofa with her legs crossed in a daring manner, she was smoking a cigarette in an incredibly long turquoise-studded holder.
Bundle thought she was one of the most beautiful women she had ever seen. Her eyes were very large and blue. Her hair was coal black. She had a matte skin, the slightly flattened nose of the Slav, and a sinuous, slender body. Her lips were reddened to a degree with which Bundle was sure Wyvern Abbey was totally unacquainted. She said eagerly, "This is Mrs. Makata, yes?"
On George's replying in the negative and introducing Bundle, the Countess gave her a careless nod, and at once resumed her conversation with the serious Mr. Bateman. Bundle heard Jimmy's voice in her ear. "Pongo is absolutely fascinated by the lovely Slav," he said. "Pathetic, isn't it? Come and have some tea." They drifted once more into the neighborhood of Sir Oswald Coote. "That's a fine place of yours, Chimneys," remarked the great man.
"I'm glad you liked it," said Bundle meekly.
"Wants some new plumbing," said Oswald. "Bring it up to date, you know." He ruminated for a minute or two. "I'm taking the Duke of Alton's place. 3 years, just while I'm looking round for a place of my own. Your father couldn't sell it if he wanted to, I suppose."
Bundle felt her breath taken away. She had a nightmare vision of England with innumerable Cootes in innumerable counterparts of Chimneys, all, be it understood, with an entirely new system of plumbing installed. She felt a sudden violent resentment which, she told herself, was absurd. After all, contrasting Lord Caterham with Sir Oswald Coote, there was no doubt as to who would go to the wall. Sir Oswald had one of those powerful personalities which make all those with whom they come in contact appear fated. He was, as Lord Caterham had said, a human steamroller, and yet, undoubtedly, in many ways, Sir Oswald was a stupid man. Apart from his special line of knowledge and his terrific driving force, he was probably intensely ignorant. 100 delicate appreciations of life, which Lord Caterham could and did enjoy, were a sealed book to Sir Oswald. Whilst indulging in these reflections, Bundle continued to chat pleasantly. Herr Eberhard, she heard, had arrived, but was lying down with a nervous headache. This was told her by Mr. O'Rourke, who managed to find a place by her side and keep it. Altogether, Bundle went up to dress in a pleasant mood of expectation, with a slight nervous dread hovering in the background whenever she thought of the imminent arrival of Mrs. Mikada. Bundle felt that dalliance with Mrs. Mikada was going to prove no primrose path. Her first shock was when she came down, demurely attired in a black lace frock, and passed along the hall. A footman was standing there, at least a man dressed as a footman, but that square, burly figure lent itself badly to the deception. Bundle stopped and stared. "Superintendent Battle," she breathed.
"That's right, Lady Eileen."
"Oh," said Bundle uncertainly. "Are you here to...
"Keep an eye on things."
I see."
"That warning letter, you know," said the superintendent, "fairly put the wind up Mr. Lomax. Nothing would do for him, but I should come down myself."
"But don't you think—" began Bundle and stopped. She hardly liked to suggest to the superintendent that his disguise was not a particularly efficient one. He seemed to have police officer written all over him, and Bundle could hardly imagine the most unsuspecting criminal failing to put on his guard.
"You think," said Superintendent stolidly, "that I might be recognized?" He gave the final word a distinct capital letter.
"I did think so, yes," admitted Bundle.
Something that might conceivably have been intended for a smile crossed the woodenness of Superintendent Battle's features. "Put them on their guard, eh? Well, Lady Eileen, why not?"
"Why not?" echoed Bundle, rather stupidly, she felt.
Superintendent Battle was nodding his head slowly. "We don't want any unpleasantness, do we?" he said. "Don't want to be too clever, just show any light-fingered gentry that might be about. Well, just show them that there's somebody on the spot, so to speak."
Bundle gazed at him in some admiration. She could imagine that the sudden appearance of so renowned a personage as Superintendent Battle might have a depressing effect on any scheme and the hatchers of it.
"It's a great mistake to be too clever," Superintendent Battle was repeating. "The great thing is not to have any unpleasantness this weekend." Bundle passed on, wondering how many of her fellow guests had recognized or would recognize the Scotland Yard detective. In the drawing room, George was standing with a puckered brow and an orange envelope in his hand. "Most vexatious," he said. "A telegram from Mrs. Mikada to say she will be unable to be with us. Her children are suffering with the mumps."
Bundle's heart gave a throb of relief.
"I especially feel this on your account, Eileen," said George kindly. "I know how anxious you were to meet her. The Countess, too, will be sadly disappointed."
"Oh, never mind," said Bundle. "I should hate it if she'd come and given me mumps."
"A very distressing complaint," agreed George. "But I do not think that infection could be carried that way. Indeed, I'm sure that Mrs. Mikada would have run no risk of that kind. She is a most highly principled woman with a very real sense of her responsibilities to the community. In these days of national stress, we must all take into account—" On the brink of embarking on a speech, George pulled himself up short. "But it must be for another time," he said. "Fortunately, there's no hurry in your case. But the Countess, alas, is only a visitor to our shores."
"She's a Hungarian, isn't she?" said Bundle, who was curious about the Countess.
"Yes. You have heard, no doubt, of the Young Hungarian Party? The Countess is a leader in that party, a woman of great wealth. Left a widow at an early age, she has devoted her money and her talents to public service. She was especially devoted herself to the problem of infant mortality, a terrible one under present conditions in Hungary. Here is Herr Eberhard. The German inventor was younger than Bundle had imagined him. He was probably not more than 33 or 34. He was boorish and ill at ease, and yet his personality was not an unpleasing one. His blue eyes were more shy than furtive, and his more unpleasant mannerisms, such as the one that Bill had described, of gnawing his fingernails, arose, she thought, more from nervousness than from any other cause. He was thin and weedy in appearance and looked anemic and delicate. He conversed rather awkwardly with Bundle in stilted English, and they both welcomed the interruption of the joyous Mr. O'Rourke. Presently, Bill bustled in. There's no other word for it. In the same such way does a favored Newfoundland make his entrance, and at once came over to Bundle. He was looking perplexed and harassed. Hello, Bundle. Heard you just got here. Been kept with my nose to the grindstone, and all blessed afternoon, or I'd been here before. Cares of state heavy tonight? Suggested O'Rourke sympathetically. Bill groaned. I don't know what your fellow's like, he complained. Looks a good-natured, tubby little chap, but Cotters is absolutely impossible. Drive from morning to night. Everything you do is wrong, and everything you haven't done, you ought to have done. Quite like a quotation from the prayer book, remarked Jimmy, who had just strolled up. Bill glanced at them reproachfully. Nobody knows, he said pathetically, what I have to put up with. Entertaining the Countess, eh? Suggested Jimmy. Poor Bill, that must have been a sad strain to a woman-hater like yourself.
What's this? Asked Bundle.
After tea, said Jimmy with a grin. The Countess asked Bill to show her around the interesting old place. Well, I couldn't refuse, could I? Said Bill, his countenance assuming a brick-red tint.
Bundle felt faintly uneasy. She knew only too well the susceptibility of Mr. William Eversley to female charms. In the hands of a woman like the Countess, Bill would be as wax. She wondered once more whether Jimmy Thesiger had been wise to take Bill into their confidence.
The Countess, said Bill, is a very charming woman, and no end intelligent. You should have seen her going round the house. All sorts of questions she asked.
What kind of questions? Asked Bundle suddenly.
Bill was vague. Oh, I don't know, about the history of it. Old furniture and, all sorts of things. At that moment, the Countess swept into the room. She seemed a shade breathless. She was looking magnificent in a close-fitted black velvet gown. Bundle noticed how Bill gravitated at once into her immediate neighborhood. The serious, spectacled young man joined him. Bill and Pongo have both got it badly, observed Jimmy Thesiger with a laugh.
Bundle was by no means so sure that it was a laughing matter. Well, there was certainly a lot going on in that chapter, a lot of dialogue back and forth. Took a lot to keep up, but what's the first thing on your mind?
First of all, you're right. Lots of stuff going down. Almost can't keep up with it all. One thing that I wanted to bring up was that when all of the members were in the meeting of the Seven Dials Club, number 2, who wasn't at the meeting, I think we deduced that is the new footman, Bauer, out at the Chimneys. And also 7, who's 7?
Exactly. It really makes you wonder. What's more is, since we're talking about who's at the party, number 1 is at the party. So we learn in chapter 15 that the party is probably a disguise for the British government to evaluate Herr Eberhard's invention. Yeah. But since number 1 is invited, does it mean that there's someone with connections inside the government with connections to the Seven Dials Club. Makes me wonder.
I didn't really think about that, but that's a good point. The next thing that kind of I wanted to mention was that Jimmy is preparing to face some what he considers a decent size amount of danger because at the end of chapter 15, he asks his butler to obtain a gun for him. Like I said, the difference in culture back then, if you're asking for a gun, you're really expecting to need it.
Yeah, it's getting in deep here. This party, um, it really makes you wonder all the different people who are going, all the parties who are going to the party, um, the government, all these different people. It must be a really big deal if all these different organizations are coming together. Even the superintendent of Scotland Yard is there. It's a pretty bad disguise, but he's also kind of trying to warn people to stay calm, not do anything weird.
Yeah, I mean, I liked his point. His point was, yeah, I stick out like a sore thumb, but that would maybe stop people who, if they did have bad intentions on doing something. So,
Exactly.
okay, so what another thing I was that kind of stood out to me is that Bundle is wary of the charming countess and can foresee her companions becoming enamored. Yeah, so this lady is beautiful. Obviously, they're having her do some duty to carry this nefarious plot off that I guess she could easily get gentlemen to do what she wanted her
Yeah.
want them to do, so to speak. So, looking forward to seeing what part she actually plays in this and how she tries to pull it off.
Yeah, exactly. I think she's actually starting it already, because she actually made contact with Bill previously, like while he was at work. He had to show her around, and she was asking a bunch of questions. But since
Oh, that's right.
yeah, since Bill does work for the government, it makes me wonder: is she scoping the place out for some reason?
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I thought to myself, who just brings somebody in, gives them a tour of their secret government office? So I guess we'll have to see how this pans out, but it definitely seemed like she was scoping the place out to me. Well, thanks for dropping by the Dragon's Den. Please join us again next time when we bend a page and explore chapters 17 and 18 of The Seven Dials Mystery by Agatha Christie.